This is a topic that can get quite philosophical, but that's probably why we've placed it in this particular slot, in this particular feature, the weird and the wonderful, because it allows us to go to places that are perhaps not on the beaten track. But what it does do is that it helps expand our minds. It helps us think a little further, deeper, higher, lower than sometimes the circumstances we find ourselves would have us believe we can. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. He's just come back from his travels. Maybe he'll share a little bit of that with us. And I'm hoping that we'll get a whole lot of value out of this conversation. Please give us a call on 011-883-0702 as I welcome Savia the monk to the conversation. Monk Spura, how are you doing, my brother?
I'm well, and very happy to join you, Aubrey. And
we missed you, man.
Yeah. I'm walking here. It's a new building.
Do you like our studios?
Yeah. They look fresh.
Thank you, sir. We really, really appreciate it. And as always, I appreciate you coming to studio, especially at night on a winter like this. I really, really appreciate you coming through. What is reality?
Reality, the beautiful. There are so many layers to this question. We can begin by defining reality as that which is being perceived. And we can categorize it into two departments. There is temporary reality, and then there's eternal reality. In one sense, at the deepest level, reality is what is known in the Sanskrit language as Sat, Chit, Ananda. Means that which is eternal, that which is full of knowledge, and that which yields great happiness and bliss. So in our current situation, we have many realities because we're all individuals and we're going through different situations.
Yeah.
So we'll take a dive into that. How is the playground of what we call reality being set up? What is the fabric of nature? What is it that is being perceived? How does it impact us? And specifically, in our pursuit of happiness, what are the obstacles? And also we want to get into sometimes spiritual knowledge is seen as running or escaping from reality. But we're saying not escaping from reality, but escaping to reality.
Oh, so many questions just from the I've just been reminded of the fact that the O'Connor family has just announced that Sinead O'Connor, the Irish star, has just passed on. Irish musician has passed on, and as you were talking, I just remembered that I have not acknowledged that moment, and our commiserations with the family and the music fraternity throughout the world. She's played a pivotal role culturally, I suppose. And lalaga lisis. Let me come back. You speak of the fabric of reality.
Yes.
As the place or the playground that our understanding, our consciousness, our awareness plays in. That's where that's where we perceive reality.
Yes.
With our awareness, with our consciousness, with our understanding, and then maybe at a lower level with our senses. But that is the place. What is the reality? What is the substance of reality?
So we can try to understand it by using an analogy of the gaming world.
Yeah.
Yeah, those who have played TV games, you get different levels, level 1, level 2, and it differs as you go forward. So we are at a dimension of what is called three-dimensional space. We have senses that can perceive, for example, your ear, a certain frequency. You can see to a certain distance. You can eat so much. So everything has been fine-tuned and regulated within the space.
Limited, yeah.
And so one major thing about this reality is that it is perceived with a beginning and an end. So for the soul, he comes into being, or he takes his birth. But this taking birth is just entering this playground, not that he himself is being created. So I want to look at it from the level of the machine that we're using, this body. It's been designed to come into this playground to go through more suffering, pain, than it is designed to give happiness. If we get into that, we can look at the duration of pain and happiness. You take any body part, you can give some sort of pleasure to it. You enjoy for a couple of minutes. But if there's some sort of injury, some sort of pain, people can have chronic diseases whole lifetimes. If we look at the intensity of it, we see that also you could be getting a nice massage and you are enjoying it. But as soon as there's some pinprick, the experience of that pinprick is greater.
Yeah.
So the fabric of it all is that it is a correctional facility which is meant to allow us to understand, Baba, the happiness that you are pursuing with this machine is not the one that you are looking for as the conscious being.
You've just introduced another dimension into the conversation, and that is time, beginning and ending. You've introduced the idea of limitedness. Because the moment you speak of time, you've already suggested a beginning and an end. And you're suggesting that the vehicle with which we experience at least the physical reality is the vehicle, or is the vehicle that embodies the other experiencer of this reality, and that is the spiritual, the soul part, who you say is not does not begin at birth.
At birth.
The soul simply climbs into a vehicle at birth.
Yes.
To experience this thing called reality for the purpose of experiencing pain?
For the purpose of clarifying to the user, the soul, that this which you're pursuing at this dimension is not what will satisfy you.
So it's what, a form of reverse psychology here that says that in order for you to know what you want, you must first know what you don't want? Is that what you're saying to me?
I'm saying, yes, we're actually desiring in the wrong direction. It's like what we are looking for is what we have left behind. It is, we are running into...
So why does the design of this whole game, of this whole video game, not just take us to where we want to go? Why do we need to have a step back and suffer in the process of desiring that which our soul does not necessarily want? That we get caught up in the desires of the five dimensions of the flesh, and then we regress in our consciousness. Why don't we just get a video game that just pushes us forward rather than backwards?
Yes, it seems like it's pushing us backwards.
Yeah.
But actually what's happening is that it's a desire correction system.
Right.
Like a child, they want to play with now it's winter, the heater. And the parent says, don't touch it. And the kid wants to touch it. So the parent unplugs it. And when it's sort of a little bit cooled down, says, touch it. So that the kid, because he cannot learn first class intelligence by hearing. Don't touch it, it's hot, it'll burn you.
Many adults too.
And yes, he wants to go and experience it.
Prison company included.
So the whole idea is that we have to willingly, voluntarily make the decision that actually this is not where it's at. Because the problem is that the desire is we want to be the designer. We want to be the source. We want to be the controller, the enjoyer. And we're given this chance here to come play God. And then when we see that, no, the whole playing field has been designed, it's got limitations, I am not independent of its laws, then we start to turn, okay, what is it that I need to do to actually attain what I'm looking for?
Is it possible to explain to me what reality is without explaining to me what the purpose is? Because in this conversation thus far, we really haven't spoken about what it is. We've spoken about what its purpose is. Is it possible for you to say to me, reality is joy? Reality is the absence of joy? It seems to me that in order for us to understand reality, we've got to understand its purpose in order to understand what it is.
Yes, because what we're doing is that we are starting from the known, what we are experiencing. Because actual reality is that which is eternal, which doesn't end, which gives ananda, as we mentioned, bliss. What we are experiencing as reality is a reflection of the real thing. If you have a tree full of mangoes and it's reflected on a lake of water, in the reflection, all the mangoes are there in full color. And if you try to enjoy those mangoes in the reflection, you just embarrass yourself. So mango is real, but you have to get it on the real tree. So reality of eternality, knowledge, and bliss is the reality where we come from. But we are now stuck in the reflection and we are struggling. So until we realize that it is futile to chase that which is illusory, which is temporary, we will not give up this pursuit. As the word says, pursuit. You're chasing,
yes,
but you can't really grab it.
Why is knowing reality important?
Because ignorance is never bliss. If you're running around in the dark, you might hurt yourself. So light, knowledge brings light. And to understand, if you're going to play with that which is illusory, it will not give you what you're looking for.
Khalil Gibran, in his anthology of poems and reflections in a book called The Prophet, speaks about pleasure. And he says, pleasure is not freedom, but it's like a freedom song. Yeah?
So it's like an advert.
Yeah. And you seem to be suggesting that reality plays a similar role by giving us a reflection of itself in the waters of existence. And then we emerge from this water thinking that the reflection is the reality. But in fact, the reflection
is the temporary.
And the reason why we suffer is because it's just a reflection. It's like, as you say, trying to pluck off the mangoes of a mango tree that is reflected in the water, which is an impossibility. And that's why we suffer. That's why we are constantly disappointed.
Yes.
So that we can look up.
Yes, and see the actual tree.
I ask again, what then is reality?
Reality is the beautiful Supreme Person. He is both the internal spiritual energy, he is the source of the external material energy, he's also the source of the living beings who are marginal, who can either be stuck in the external illusion, reflection, or can be absorbed in the eternal spiritual connecting energy. So he is beautiful. He is all powerful, all knowing, all attractive, all famous, all wealthy. He is everything. There is nothing.
Why is he?
Because this denotes the enjoyer. The principle of the enjoyer is the male principle. And then what is enjoyed is one's energy. So everything that is coming from the principle of source is enjoyed by the source. It's for his purposes. So we are also have been expanded from that source for the purpose of enjoying a variety of relationships, because it's innumerable individual living beings.
Interesting. In certain Christian parlance, there's the idea of God being he, and his flock, those that follow, being his bride. Yeah?
Yes.
It's very, very interesting that there is a genderization of these concepts, that which is the source is male, and that which is the result is female. I don't want to get into which is higher, which is lower, right? Because that's what politics is about. I do want to get a sense, though. When do we get to a point, without the assistance of gurus such as yourself, priests, izangoma, the priestly class, as it were, is it possible for us to meet with reality without the assistance of the priestly class?
Yes. At the same time, it is much easier to get the help of someone else. If you're tied up, hands and feet, to free yourself, you need someone who's not bound up like yourself. But reality is so wonderful that it also situated within the heart of every living being. And from within, knowledge, remembrance, forgetfulness are being supplied to each person, because he has witnessed all the activities, all the desires, and so can inspire from within and help us get realizations. So we take help from the guru within, and also we need the teacher without, because the teacher without, he can walk with us and he can correct us and
make references to
the living reality that you're in. Yeah.
So my guest is Savia the monk, and we're talking about the nature of reality. It's a big, big subject, folks. It's huge, right? But I suppose I'm going to reveal why I'm having this conversation. I believe very, very strongly that if we don't understand the layer of the land, if we don't understand the reality in which we find ourselves, we are bound to constantly make mistakes. We are bound to constantly be trying to pluck the mango of a reflected tree, right? We are bound to be jaded by that experience. And we are bound to be, to short circuit the process of the experience of humanity, of why we are here. And therefore we are bound not to show up as our full selves, right? And I'm hoping that we can have that conversation with our listeners, because I think that we are in a very, very interesting place in the epoch of humanity, in the evolution of humanity. We're in a very, very, very pivotal place. And it requires us to understand where we are in reality, what is reality, in order for us to recalibrate, so that we can have the full experience of humanity. I'm hoping that that's where we're going to go. The number to dial is 011-883-0702. My guest is Savia the monk. We're looking at the nature of reality, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please ignite your curiosity. Let's have this conversation. I believe there's some deep learnings waiting for us. Let's take a break. When we come back, we continue the conversation after the break. My guest is Xavier the Monk, and we are philosophizing. We're talking about the big questions. We're talking about the nature of reality. And I was just trying to sort of get a sense of what it is that we're trying to do here. I said before we went to the break that we are at a very interesting time in the evolution of time, in the evolution of our species, in the evolution of life. Nje. We are in the midst of unprecedented technological advancements. We are able to experience realities that maybe 2, 3, 4 decades ago would have been relegated to witchcraft. I mean, we can speak in real time to somebody overseas without having to go through all sorts of things. That somebody would have said, nah, you're talking about telepathy 10, 15, maybe 40 years ago. Right? But at the same time, we are going through an existential crisis. The unprecedented hold that substances have on us, drugs, various forms of addiction, that we can't recognize ourselves as human beings anymore. I'm arguing, Sbuda, that we are in a very, very turbulent time that is characterized by great excellence, but also by deep depravity. And we need to start asking bigger, better questions about who we are, where we are in the unfolding of life. And that's why I keep gravitating to this question that says, what is reality? What is this thing that we find ourselves in and we find in us? What is this thing? And so I am asking you to assist me, as I ask the listeners to assist me, in formulating the questions that are going to make us leave this hour with a sense of direction about where we need to start going, what we need to start asking as we recalibrate ourselves for a better understanding of our reality. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It starts with really the core question of identity. Who am I? What am I? What am I connected to? And we discussed that there's these two aspects. The temporary, which is the physical, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And then I was Shia,
the reflection.
So who has left is who should be studied. And so without that foundational understanding of our spiritual identity, we build a whole civilization on quicksand. Because it is based on a premise of misidentification. We're thinking we're that which is not. We're thinking we're the temporary. Therefore, even our advancements in now we're going to virtual realities. We have been lost to the reality of ourselves as eternal beings. We think we're the temporary body. Now we're creating other layers where we are hacking into our mind and senses to live in augmented virtual spaces. So then now we're also divorcing from this temporary physical earthly expression. There was a man crying on one of these daytime shows. The wife is saying, get off the couch and go and do something out there. And the man is saying, I've accomplished so much playing these TV games. She wants him to quit. And he has created a whole life and world within the virtual space. So how much away from self are we going? So it becomes more and more difficult if we don't ask the basic questions of who we are, where we are, and what is that which does not get destroyed by time.
What is your biggest existential question? Give me a call. I'd like to hear from you. This is the weird and the wonderful on 702. I know that for some this might be a conversation that goes over your head. But for some of you, it's a conversation that perhaps you might not be familiar with some of the concepts and some of the words. But something inside of you is attracted to this kind of conversation. I want to argue that you are ripe for the plucking. I want to argue that you are ready to discover who you are. I want to argue that you are ready to discover the reality, the truth behind the matrix. I want to argue that you are ready. You know, sometimes we don't know what we don't know. Yeah? And so we get into a situation where we say that that which we can't articulate with words does not exist. I'm arguing that that which you can't argue with words, but you feel, that there's a knowing feeling at the back of your thinking that knows something, is reality. I want to argue that that feeling that you constantly have, that there's more to this than just seeking a job, than the paying of taxes. There's a greater agenda at play here than what we are made to understand. I'm arguing that you are closer to reality than most. And so sometimes the illusion that is presented by our inability to articulate these things, an illusion that suggests that if I can't name it, therefore it doesn't exist, I'm suggesting to you is the ultimate lie. It is the lie that keeps you away from asking the questions. But you don't ask the questions sometimes. Sometimes you let the weird and the wonderful have a conversation. 011-883-0702. Savvy the Monk is my guest. We are trying to understand the nature of reality. What is this thing? Where does it reside? Why are we here? What's going on? Sinead O'Connor has passed on today. And Savvy the Monk has just said that... what did you just say about that?
About how we understand that she's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then who was she?
Uh-huh.
Who was gone?
Yeah.
And so that is one of the big questions that we should ask, is that what will endure after this body meets its inevitable end?
Give us a call. I'd love to hear from you. Aaron is in Davidson. Good evening to you, Aaron. There you go.
Hi, Janga. How are you?
Hey, what's happening, my brother?
Well, I'm still alright. Yeah.
It's good to hear your voice. Tell me what is on your mind.
Thanks. You are featuring that man is well versed. He knows very well about what he's talking about. Because myself, I am survived by reality in nature. You see, what I can say, share with you guys, with everybody here is it's a question of a science of self-realization. You see, that man, he knows that book, and then that book contains everything. If you read that book, I'm telling you, you will understand everything you want to know about the world, the people, the nature, and everything else. Yeah.
What is that book, Aaron?
It's a science of self-realization.
Oh, yeah.
I always try to reason to you people about it.
The science of self-realization.
Yes.
Yeah, I have tried to prescribe it many times, and then every
Oh, Aaron, are you still there? No, let me tell you this. Sometimes something can be true, but I might not be ready for it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So you may find that you've been talking about this book and it is important and it has the information that you are so desperately wanting us to get. But sometimes we're just not mature enough. We're not ready to even hear what that book is suggesting to us.
Ask Messi Bakela about it. She knows it. I prescribed it to her, and then she managed to do a lot of things just by herself. She managed to write more albums and managed to compile her biography and many things, and lot more of many things. I prescribed the book for her.
Give me that book again.
The Science of Self.
The Science of Self-Realization. You familiar with the book?
Yes.
Okay.
Very potent literature. what's going on in that book is that people are asking the big questions. It's an interview with Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and they are asking, how does spiritual science interact with our politics, our education, our finance, our social systems? How do we use that wisdom to navigate this world and ultimately understand how to rise above the illusory layer of reality to the eternal?
Is the illusory layer of reality reality?
Yes, it is a temporary manifestation because it all comes from the eternal reality, the supreme person.
Yeah.
So it is substantial, but it manifests a temporary reality. It is something like when you go to sleep, you dream. In there's so many things are going on and you experience, but then you wake up. So we are in this dream where we are taking this body to be the self, but when we wake up, we realize, no, the body is just a vehicle, and its destiny is back to nature, all the elements of the body. But I needs to be able to connect to the ultimate reality using the machine, the tools of the human form.
Or number 1-883-0702, you remind me of a poet, philosopher, architect by the name of Alexander Pope. He said something to this effect. He said, "True wit is nature to advantage dressed, what oft was thought but never so well expressed." And what we're looking for here is to find the words to express that which we feel in the inner man, in the inner guru. There's this inner thing that is screaming out to say, you're going the wrong way, you're going the wrong way. You made an example, for example, of saying that if we are going to build anything on the basis of a lie, however brilliant whatever we build is a lie.
It's grand and shiny lie.
And I'm suggesting that we are right at the middle of that process, where we are growing, we're doing bigger things, we're talking about virtual reality, we're talking about AI. But what is the foundation upon which all of this is built? Is it reality or is it a reflection of reality?
We're dealing with the reflection, unfortunately. We are seeing all the energy and we've learned how to manipulate it and put it together to realize many of our desires, make life easier. But we have not recognized the source of these energies. Therefore, we are exploiting the resources instead of using the resources to highlight reality.
I gotta remind myself of something. As we speak, it almost feels like we are in a gear shifting process in the bigger existential sense, where we are literally building the antithesis of reality. That we are in a process where we are building the very temerity of the lie, so that the lie can stand before the truth and say, "You know greater than me." Yeah?
Yes.
"You're no greater than me. I have all of the qualities of truth."
Yes. All seeing, we're surveilling everything. All knowing, we're spying. You know, we now want to track
Ubiquitous. We want to give the impression that ubiquity is omnipresence.
Because we in this tragic mimicry of the supreme
Reality.
Yes, we're trying to create it away, but it can't stand because it's all borrowed, whatever we're using.
It's just synthesis. It's not creation.
Yes.
Okay, I've just had a whole. I don't know what do you call this feeling, right? All right, let's take some calls. Prince is in Bedford View. Good evening to you, Prince.
Hello, Aubrey. It's so weird that the Weird and Wonderful is my entire favorite segment on the entire radio.
Could you just tell that to my producer, Ntando? Could you scream that on the highest building, Prince? Go ahead, sir. Yeah.
The only episode competing with this is the scientist, the naked scientist.
Yeah.
Because and again, it goes into what you said. You said that if you are interested in this kind of conversation, it means that you are ready. That's powerful, Aubrey. Or sometimes we're sitting on you, yes. You have something like, you said this because you don't even know the power of what you're saying. You said that the fact that you are interested in this kind of conversation, because what you're interested in defines you, shows who you are. Yep. So if you're interested in things like this, it means you're ready to know the truth. So now, here's my question, right? I hope your guest will be able to unpack it for me.
Sure.
So there's this, I want to understand, what is the relationship between, or rather the disparity between reality and consciousness? So there's been a back and forth. I've tried to draw the similarity between, because it seems that one cannot exist without the other. Or is it a matter of grammar? Is it a matter of words? So can we... What's the disparity between the two, consciousness versus reality?
Oh, of course, yeah. All right, Prince. I'm going to let the monk deal with you, yeah? Go ahead.
Thank you, Prince, for that princely question. So, consciousness is a part of reality. Like I explained earlier that we are part and parcel. So, you take the drop of the ocean. If you study that drop, you understand the chemical constitution of the whole ocean. So there is supreme consciousness, which is the entirety of of reality. And then there's the sparks of consciousness, you and I, who are encased in this body. We are also real in that we are eternal, and we have the qualities of that whole. Yes. But then we are that drop in relation to the ocean. So what is happening is that the drop can always be evaporated and lost, but you can't evaporate the ocean. So right now, the smaller sparks are being overcome by the external energy of the Supreme, which manifests the temporary world. So we are covered over. So what needs to happen is that we need to remove the rust or remove the dust on the mirror so we can see our true nature and see what we're connected to, reality, the beautiful, the eternal.
So one of my gurus, one of my prophets, likes to speak of the idea that the counterfeit 50 Rand note, the counterfeit 50 Rand note cannot exist without the real, right? The counterfeit 50 Rand note cannot exist without the existence of the real, because it took its characteristics, it stole it from the real.
Yes.
The issue of reality is starting to become a little more visible in that analogy. That we are caught up in a process of creating substance on the basis of the understanding of something that is real. But we are creating something that is not real.
And with those words, we can come to substance and shadow. If you're trying to rob my shadow, do you think you'll get the money that's in my pocket?
So you'll constantly be disappointed because there's actually no money in there, because there's actually no you there. It's just a shadow.
It's a shadow.
And so the reality that we perceive while we are in the vehicle of the flesh is the shadow of the reality.
Yes, sir.
And while we try to rob the shadow of the money, we get disappointed. We get reminded of the illusory nature of what we perceive to be reality when it's not.
It's frustrating. I'm doing
so
everything.
that we can look up.
Yes.
011-883-0702. We're talking about reality and the nature thereof. My guest is Savia the monk, and I'm having a good time. Mariah is on the line. Good evening to you, Mariah.
Hi, Aubrey. May I also add to, excuse me, what the one caller said, that, the weird and the wonderful really is the outstanding feature of.
Thank you, Mariah. Please scream it, say it loud, say it proud, say it clear, so that Ndando can hear it.
I think more of this. I mean, we really do, because I think there's more to what we perceive as reality, anyway, to experiences than what we see and experience and so forth. But Aubrey, in terms of the current show, I've got two questions or a comment, I don't know. What I'd like to ask is that, I do agree. I absolutely do agree with what your guest is saying. I agree, like, at a different level. Anyway, I do. But what I'd like to ask is that when you're caught up in the consciousness or the so-called reality, the experience of, having to, for example, you've lost your job and now you have to fend for family or kids or something, it's very difficult, I think, to then transcend that and say, well, this is only a shadow, this is only a reflection. Because basically you need to, as they say, put food on the table. You're responsible for people. I think if it's just for yourself, it's a little bit easier to kind of like go beyond. But when you've got others around you, I think that is a very difficult transition to go into. And I'd like to know how one kind of like overcomes that.
Excellent question.
And another thing I'd like to ask is something that was said earlier, that it's within you to kind of like reach this consciousness or this state, but that it's facilitated by the help of a so-called guru. And my question is, where do you find these gurus? Because if one is talking about spirituality, there are a lot of fake gurus out there that just lead you up the wrong path. And I think also knowing who and what and so forth is also important. So again, how do we identify the correct guru, so to speak? Thanks. Those are my 2 points.
All right, thank you so much for a great question. Can I take 2 more questions? Let me just take 2 more questions, and then maybe you can get those in, respond to all of them at the same time. Let me speak to Kuku in Midrand. Hi, Kuku.
Hi, Ori. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, my brother. Yeah.
Not really much of a question, really more of a statement regarding what you guys were saying about perception. I think it really changed the way I saw things, because I had the idea that my perception shapes the world or the reality that I live in. So how I see things, how I feel about things will ultimately determine how things turn out, So now understanding that reality is a lot bigger than just who I am, and that it's influenced by, like you said, I guess it's a drop. We're a drop in the ocean, Just need to get the rust off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So no, that was just my statement. Thank you very much for the show.
Thanks.
Much appreciated, Gugu in Midrand. Much appreciated.
Mariah, that was really brilliant questions. The first was, how do we deal with reversals? The practical reality of our need to make ends meet and take care of others. So that's a very big test. It said to get gold to shine and be beautiful, it has to be put through high heat. To get the diamonds shining and glistening, they have to be rubbed against each other. So on the anvil of material life, we're being knocked and hammered into shape.
Yeah.
What is this shape? Realizing that we are insignificant and we are dependent on reality, the beautiful, the supreme. And at that point, humility can be pulled out from us, where we can cry out for help. That facilitates a deeper bond of dependence. And everything that comes as a beginning, it will have an end. It's just that it's trying at that time. About a genuine guru, he has to be someone who has conquered or has mastered his own tongue, his belly, and his genitals. He is sober person, and he's dedicated body, mind, and words in the service of supreme reality. Means he's a transparent via medium of divine will. He walks his talk. There's no private life versus public life. He has to be the living book. Whatever we are reading, theories we are understanding spiritually, have to be embodied in that person. So such a personality is called a pure soul, because it's a pure via medium of the will of the Supreme. That is a genuine guru. Others are there for different things, but the best kind is what I've just described.
Sure. Savia the Monk, it's always great talking to you. As we close, why do you think it's important once again? It's a question I'm asking for the second time, for us to understand reality.
Without knowing reality, then we are just blind, and then we accept other blind people to lead us, and we all fall into a ditch.
I'm hoping to have you again soon with another individual who has been following your work. It'll be interesting to hear a conversation between the two of you, but thank you so much for joining us. Let's take... by the way, how do people find you? How do people follow you?
You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, Savia the Monk, Savya the Monk, Savia the Monk.
Smuda the Monk, also known as Savia the Monk. Thank you very much for joining us.